And Mr. Branslow, do you want to lead us?
Okay, the work session, the intent of it for tonight is to remember not that many time ago, a short time ago, and we talked about the different learning plans, and what we looked at was a resolution that had to do with in-person learning, because at that time this was the plan that we could accept because of our numbers involving COVID reporting. And so since that time now, we've completed the complete plan for reopening plan for the fall of 2020. And you received the 18-page document that outlines the different scenarios. And we've got 5 different scenarios set up. And so we'll go through those tonight. And I asked you to look through the big document, the 18 pages there, and just familiarize yourself with what we're talking about as we go through the plans now. So I'm going to have the principals. They were instrumental in putting this together. And I think it explains what we want, what we need to do. And I think every one of us, our main goal is to offer in-person classes. We know that that's what's best for student learning and for achievement. And so we're starting out with that. Our numbers present was a little over 8. And as long as they're under 10, we can go along with the in-person learning where everybody will come back, K through 12, pre-K through 12, and we'll start. I don't like to use the word normal because even though everybody's going to be back, there's going to be a lot of changes that we're going to have to adhere to. And so I think I'd like to have the principals. There's also, along with the big packet, was also a 1-page sheet, the colored sheet that is the status levels. And I'd like to have the principals explain each one of those levels, and they're all color coded so they can go through those and explain how does this impact the elementary, the middle school, the high school students as they progress. And the status levels, depending on the number of the count from that we receive as far as COVID count determines at what level we can move to. And so we'd like to stay where we're starting if we can, but we'll talk about what are the expectations of at each level and what happens because we go to one or another. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Benson and Mr. Minton, and they can talk about the different levels. And so if you've got your colored sheet in front of you, you could follow along, take notes on that. And Jim brought it up on the computer page now so that everybody can view it. And so I think we'll just spend some time going through each one of these levels, explaining to you what's the difference. And when we go from one to another, what change do we have to take a look at? And I think families, parents, and students need to adhere to this, look at it very closely because things can change very quickly. And I think that's what we discussed when we approved the resolution of in-person learning. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the principals and they can explain the different levels here as we have it right now.
All right, thanks, Dale. I think to start things off with, whether we're talking about this plan here or these levels or the big plan that we sent out, it's important for everybody to understand that first and foremost, we're going to be monitoring this continually. And if something's not working right, we're not going to just let it go. We're going to be meeting and talking about ways to improve. And we welcome feedback from parents, from students, from faculty, from wherever, because we want to make this as user-friendly as possible. And as I'm going to reiterate something Dale said, our main focus is this top level. It's status level green. We want students to be in the building. We've had the luxury of talking with Sherry Rodarius, the superintendent over at McRae, and they've been doing this already for a week. And although their plan is not identical to ours, they've had a lot of success. What she actually said that wearing masks has not been an issue over there whatsoever. And we're going to work hard to make sure everybody understands why we need to do that, and how important that is for us. So to start off with, we color coded this. Green means go, and go back to school. Status level green is all students back in the building face to face. Certainly all families have the option of keeping their students home. And although we encourage everybody to come to the building, we are going to make it as safe as we possibly can. We understand that people are very concerned out there. And we're going to also work to make sure that those kids at home are able to do so as efficiently as we can. Can you see my cursor when I point
Yep.
there?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're able to do the status level green. All of these levels are based on county infection levels. So they take a look at the last 14 days, and it looks like we're going to be a week behind, but so they look at a 14-day block, and as long as we're less than 10 per 10,000 people, we're able to be full face-to-face learning, no questions asked. The 3 weeks ago, the level was like 7.4 people per 10,000 in Renville County. Last week, it dropped to 6.1, and we were excited about that. We were less excited last Thursday when it jumped up to 8.1. I think it was 8.1. But as long as that number is less than 10, we're able to just do everybody back in the building. We don't have to follow the rigid social distance 6-foot rule. But what we've got a lot of cleaning protocols we're going to be following, and doing whatever we can, like I said, to keep that building as clean as possible. What everyone has to understand is that while we're certainly concerned with everyone's health, we can't achieve our goal of in-person learning if we have too many staff members get sick. And we're not talking COVID. Everybody's talking about COVID, and we forget that there's still other reasons people get sick or can't come to work. So whatever we can do to keep our staff healthy, we're going to do, because we might have 20 kids that get the chicken pox and can't come to school. But if we had 10 staff members, we probably would have to skip all the way down to status level red and go to distance learning for everyone, because we can't have school if we have a bunch of custodians sick. We can't have school if our food service, our bus drivers, our paras, our secretaries, our teachers get sick. We can't do any of these in-between steps. And so when it comes to following our masking protocols, we're going to do that very, very strictly, because it's one simple thing we can do to keep everybody healthy. Let's see. Are there any questions on this green level from anybody on the board here? Okay.
Yeah, Jim, I got a question for you.
Yep.
What are we doing for the mask situation?
Okay. So we're following the executive order. Everyone is going to be required to wear a mask, or we call it a face covering. That's not our terminology. That's what somebody else came up with. A face covering, we would consider a mask, a scarf, something directly over the face. A face shield is another option. What we want people to understand, that what the science we are seeing shows that a mask protects the person wearing the mask, and it protects other people as well. So a mask is the best way to go. But we know that there's some people out there that just for either medical reasons or for whatever reason, maybe they just can't stand it. I've heard of people actually breaking out when they're wearing some of these. If you're not going to wear a mask, you will be required to wear a face shield. Again, it's not something that we feel we can make an option, because there are a lot of parents that, yeah, we understand they don't want their kid to be forced to wear a mask, but we also have a lot of parents that have contacted us to say, we're not sending our kids to school if you're not enforcing this. And we've got staff members that would be very uncomfortable coming to the building as well if we're not enforcing this. And again, if we don't have enough staff members, we automatically get sent down to status level red.
I'll interject something else here, Jim, that I think it's that we've talked as far as staff-wise with a mask, and I think a lot of concerns come from adults saying a mask, wearing it all day long, and we're really looking at taking periodical breaks where the class can go, group can go outside to take a 5-minute break or something, take the mask off and utilize that time like that, and then go back into the classrooms. And so I think we'll recognize that when that break is needed for our students. And so I think that should help them also. But again, as Jim is really emphasizing, that mask is on there not just for ourselves, but the people around us. And so I think it's very important that we respect each other's rights also, as well as our own. So if there's questions about that, don't hesitate to get in contact with us.
So will you be requiring the parents to provide the masks then, or how does that
Good
go?
question. So next Thursday, I believe it is, right there?
Yes. Yep.
The next Thursday, the government is providing us with a mask and a face shield a mask for every employee, a cloth mask, and a face shield for all teachers and 50% of our support staff. They're going to provide a cloth mask for every student and 3 paper masks for every student. If they need a shield, we're looking into options there.
Okay, now do you have to change a mask every day, or how does that work?
So what? Yeah, you want to. I think the paper masks are good for like 3 wearings, but yeah, we want to clean those masks, and whether we're going to be collecting them at the end of the day is something that we're discussing.
Okay.
And students are more, we encourage them to wear their own, if they have something personalized or something fun they want to wear, by all means, as long as it's school appropriate, they can't have advertising for drugs or, whatever on there. But as long as it's school appropriate, we don't have any, we encourage that. I mean, if we're forced to do this, we might as well have some fun with it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to know how the requirements were for the parents.
Well, this is not
them.
the only place they need it, so I would think they'd have something.
Most people do.
Right. It's not like we're only requiring it at school and you don't need it anywhere else. So, I mean, you need it everywhere you go. So I think they would also have some things for that, but.
Like I was saying before too, I know of some schools that they're collecting masks at the end of the day to wash. That's something we've talked about and haven't really come up with a definite decision on if we want to do that or not.
But I think it's also encouraging parents to be involved in this too, and to monitor that some at home. And I would advise, if you're going to wear a mask all day, then it needs to be washed at night, or you have more than one. And so I think the school and parents home working together, this can be successful. And this is one thing that they've seen the most success with as far as the spreading of the virus and is controlling that. And so I think we need to, as a district and as a community, work together on this. And I encourage parents to support this with their students, and let's work together and have it be successful.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Minton.
You are welcome. Our next status level, level yellow. Yellow means caution. This is where we start taking things a little bit slower. Again, our goal is to have everyone face-to-face learning as much as possible. But at some point, we know that that's not going to be possible. We also know that it's far more important the younger you get, that in-person learning. As we get older, we have more responsibility and we are able to do some more things on our own. So when we get to status level yellow, which is a county infection level between 10 to 19.9 over the last 14 days, that's when we would, as soon as we find out that this number has jumped over 10, we're going to convene our COVID advisory council, and we'll discuss what's happening, and they'll make a recommendation as to whether or not we should move up to status level yellow. In status level yellow, we're going to prioritize our younger folks, our littler people here, and preschool through 6th grade. It's not going to look any differently than status level green. All of these guys are still going to be coming into the school just like they were the day before. Again, we'll try to socially distance as much as possible. We'll attempt to get as close to the 50% room capacity as possible. We're going to continue these enhanced cleaning protocols that we've already been doing from status level green. Where it's going to look differently now is we're going to start in grades 7 through 12 with our blended model, where we're having approximately half of our students staying at home on one day, and then the other half in school on that day. And then we'll switch back and forth, where it'll be an A-B schedule. A kids come to school Monday and Tuesday, and then B, they're watching from home, and they show up for their classes. And I guess I didn't mention this for the students. This is true also of the students that choose to learn from home in the status level green. They still need to show up for their classes. One of the issues we had last spring was we feel it wasn't structured enough, and parents didn't know what to expect, kids didn't know what to expect sometimes. So we do expect for kids when they're working from home to be tuning in to their classes throughout the day. For the students that are in the building, again, we're not always going to be at a 6-foot social distance, but we're going to be doing our best to keep people spread out when possible. So the A schedule kids come to school Monday and Tuesday, B's at home. Then we reverse it on Thursday and Friday, where the B schedules come to the building and the A schedule tunes in for online learning. Wednesdays, everyone does online learning. It's a mental health day. It's time for kids to get caught up. Teachers can really work one-on-one with their students as much as possible. And it also gives our custodians a day to come in and really clean up those classrooms, do a really intensive cleaning in those rooms. Questions on our status level yellow?
The schedule A, B you have here, would that consistently stay the same throughout the year?
Yeah. Yep. So, and we'll do our best to try to split it up by families, especially at the elementary level, so that families are coming together, so you don't have cross-contamination where one kid's going on A days and another kid's going on B days, and then bringing all that back into the house. And we're going to do our best to do that at the high school. It's a lot more difficult when you throw electives into the mix, but we're going to do our best with that.
Jim, I have a question. You mentioned that if we got, to where you'd have more than 10 in the county, and then you would get the advisory council back together and then decide what to do. So if we got to say we got to 11, is that then our choice to move to status level yellow, or is that pretty much a requirement? I mean, once you have this number, just because I know people are going to be watching these numbers.
Yep. It is and it's not. It's what the government is recommending, but we might have extenuating circumstances.
Mhm.
If let's say we learned that in the last 14 days it jumped up to 15, but the majority of those cases came from we'll pick on Renville. Majority of those cases came from Renville, and they're not impacting us. We might say, hey, we're going to continue as is for another week and monitor this. We then have to send a report to the state informing them as to what our learning level is, our learning model is rather, and why we are choosing to not follow the state protocol.
Okay.
Or guideline.
Mhm.
That would be a discussion we would have with the council you were talking about. And also there's a regional support group that will be notified. And so it goes up the chain of command. And so if you're not going to follow these guidelines, well, then you have to have the discussion of why. And so what you're bringing up there, Tracy, is very valid, is that it's not locked in stone, but this is a guide. And if you alter from anything in here, then that needs to be a discussion that goes through the county and to the region, to the state. And so all those people are together with that decision-making process. So,
Question for you, Jim.
Yep.
If, for example, if one week you're at a 9, next week you're at a 10, you stay at a 10 for a couple of weeks, when's the next time you can go back to a yellow? I'm sorry,
That's a
green.
great question. That following week, when the county comes back with those numbers, that's when we would most likely reconvene that committee and say, hey, do we feel comfortable going back down there? It's certainly not outside of the realm of possibilities that maybe we contact parents and find out, hey, what do you think? What are your thoughts on this? Do we, especially if we were looking at going back to a green level, I think we definitely want to get parent input on that. Do you feel comfortable doing this? Thursday is kind of the magic date. I don't think I said Thursday. It's on Thursdays that we're going to hear from the public health department what our county level is. You can also find it on the Department of Health website. They publish that. So it's not just like secret news that our county gets.
I think one thing to answer what John is asking there too is the intent is not to be bouncing back and forth. I think when the numbers change like that, then it goes back to our advisory council. Like Jim said, trying to determine why the numbers are where they are, and if they're going to continue there or they're going to increase or decrease, what's the feeling of the committee, and really get a feel from the community in the area. But we don't want to be bouncing back and forth every other week. So I think needs to be a time frame there that see where numbers settle down at, and then move the best we can.
Yeah, I think that would be real hard for students and teachers and everybody, bouncing one week to another week, to a different week, to a different week, to a different week, or different approach. It'd be tough.
I agree.
So I have a question, Jim. So let's say, okay, I'm student on the B schedule, and I'm on online learning today. So I can actually go into my computer and type in that classroom, whatever code or whatever they're going to have, and watch that classroom. So I still feel a part of that class, but not there.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be able to do that.
Yes.
As a teacher is, having having his class, they'll be able to see everything that's going on while they're not there.
Yes.
Good, good.
So
Because then
each
they'll feel at
teacher-
least part of it yet. I mean, they're still part
Yeah.
of the group, but yet not there.
Well, and Sandy, what we get with this also that we didn't have last spring is we get that periodically return to the classroom, where last spring students kind of figured out this is forever, and a lot of people just thought, I'm done, I'm checking out, I'm moving on. But it's going to be a lot harder to do that because now in 2 days you got to be accountable, and so
Yeah.
that's the main benefit to any of these hybrid scenarios. They do have continued accountability that was really hard to do when they just knew we never have to show our face in the building. Yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
Yep. Any other questions on our yellow level? All right. The next couple levels are very similar to the yellow. We went with status level orange. I wanted to go with status level burnt umber, but Brett would not let me. We are going with status level orange. That's going to be a county infection level from between 20 and 20.9. Again, we'll find that out on Thursdays. The main difference here is now we have gone to everybody hybrid learning. We have nobody coming to the, we don't have everyone coming to the building. We basically have half of our students each day in the building. Everybody will be on an A-B schedule. I think I'm missing something here.
No, that's correct. Isn't
Okay.
it?
Yep.
And Wednesday is where it'd be
Yeah.
pre-K through 12 would be the online learning, where it'd be the time again for the building get cleaned, disinfected entirely. And
I'm wondering if I have a typo here though.
okay,
Isn't this where, is this still pre-K or do we get rid of pre at this point?
this is pre is off. That would be, and that's
a typo
right,
then.
Jim. Is when we go to a complete hybrid, then it'll be a K through 12 system, and we will not have the preschool meeting during that period of time.
Yeah, so I that's why I started to stumble here, because I realized that was not right.
You're right.
It's right now though. Look at that. So once we get to orange, that's our big shift. Is now we have to, because we don't have our little people coming into the building. Now we have to provide daycare for emergency workers. So if we do have to go to status level orange, we lose our early childhood classes. That becomes daycare for the emergency workers. And Derek Flan has sent out notice of this to the early childhood folks so that they know that that's a possibility. But other than that, like I say, it looks very, very similar to the yellow. Okay. Any questions on status level burnt umber? I mean, orange? See, it rolls off your tongue so well. I don't know why you didn't want it.
So
Okay.
could we put like the pre-K into a different building at that time or not?
I think part of the problem is we don't have anyone to staff it.
So the staffing from the pre-K goes where? Or
They'll-
from the, yeah, little
They will
kids.
then run the daycare.
Okay.
When we would go to the orange, then that also becomes a staffing issue, where we're going to have more staff working with the smaller grade levels. So that's part of the reason for it also. But we're also thinking if it's that to that extent, then maybe it's best for preschool to take a break here too and pull away from the building and give them some time away to recover too for the period of time. But it also has to do with staffing.
So am I wrong in looking at this? It's just all the A and B are not coming to school, correct?
No, so A comes to school
Oh,
on
they
Mondays
still-
and Tuesdays, while B is at home in the same classes. Then everyone's home on Wednesday, getting caught up, getting one-on-one
Okay,
service with the teachers, whatever needs to happen there. And I think this is really important. One of the lessons that we learned from our parents last spring was that kids were getting behind too easily. And it was really easy for them to just throw in the towel. So we've got two things going on here. And if you remember, we actually switched the last couple weeks to focus on those kids. So really, rather than doing that, we're going to incorporate these Wednesdays so that doesn't happen again.
okay.
But so yeah, so A comes to school Monday, Tuesday, and then the B is at home watching online, and then they flip-flop. So then the B kids come to school Thursday and Friday, while the A schedule kids are learning online.
Okay,
You still have the same teacher teaching the same class. They're not just getting a video of the class, they're actually participating. And we're gonna work with our teachers when they come back to look for ways to try to engage those kids as much as they can. Obviously it's not the same, but and you know, with this, we do need to require a little bit more self-discipline when possible from kids, but it's not as Wild West as it was last spring.
good. Thank you.
Yes. Any other orange questions? All right. Status level purple, starting to get dark. Again, we prioritize those face-to-face encounters with our younger learners more than with our older learners. We're not saying it's not important for everyone, but again, we're trying to preserve that as much as possible. So if we get to status level purple, we're hybrid learning, we're socially distanced at all times. This is when our county infection level is between 30 to, and less than 50 per 10,000 people over the last 14 days. The hybrid model that we were talking about before will continue unchanged for grades K-6. And so it'll be identical to orange for them. However, in grades 7 through 12, they will then move to online learning. We'll use a variety of tools, Google Classroom, Schoology, Skyward. We had some people that felt strongly that we should try to condense and everyone use the same Schoology or Google. But what a compromise we're making is we're going to actually change up how we use Skyward, so that there's no question as to whether an assignment was assigned and hasn't been checked in yet, if it's been assigned and the kid didn't turn it in, if it was assigned and the kid got a 0 on it. There was a lot of confusion there, and we feel that this will help by standardizing how all of our teachers use Skyward, which is honestly something we've been talking about for a while now. If we standardize that, we feel it's going to make it a lot easier on parents. One of the issues we've had is that if a teacher types in that they assigned a worksheet, I hope they're not doing worksheets, but we'll say it. Everybody knows what a worksheet is. If a teacher types in worksheet 1 and does nothing else, and they haven't even had students hand them back in yet, in Skyward, it puts a little asterisk there, and parents look and see that. And a lot of kids, when their parents ask their child, what's that asterisk mean? Do you have homework? The child will say, no, that asterisk means that I've already turned it in. like a lie. And the parents, they don't know. So, you're going to believe your kid. Another issue is some teachers in the past, if somebody didn't hand in an assignment, they just left the asterisk. Other teachers would put a 0 in that column. Well, now how do you know if you got to actually receive 0 points because you did poorly on an assignment, or do you have a 0 because you didn't hand it in? We don't know. So teachers are going to actually be marking those missing. So again, there won't be any confusion for the parents on that. Let's see. It says daily attendance here. I'm not sure why it says it there and not elsewhere. But even in the hybrid models, daily attendance will be taken on the computer. The students will be required to log in at the same time of their classes each day. As of right now, that's our plan.
Hey,
We
Mr.
are
Min-
going to be working with the teachers just to discuss how can we refine this to make it better. So you'll see in our main plan that we turned in, we don't have like a daily schedule on what 7 through 12 is going to look like. I think it's really important that we get our teachers in on this discussion. And while we did meet probably 5 or 6 times over the summer, there were Zoom meetings where sometimes I would have 75% of the faculty there, and sometimes I'd only have 5, 6 people there. So I think it's really important that we get that input from all of our teachers so that we can really come up with an effective and equitable schedule here. Do you guys have any questions on status level purple?
I do, Mr. Minton. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Now, when you were mentioning the 7th through 12th grade, last year I had plenty of comments about students getting assignments and not knowing how to do the assignments because of some glitch or something, I don't know, and expecting the parents to know how to do it. I hope we don't have that problem this year.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what, I don't think there's any teachers that would expect the parents to know how to do it, but there's certainly early on with Schoology, there were a lot of problems with that. I expect that we're going to see less people using Schoology because I just learned yesterday that they're not allowing people to create new free accounts, and those with free accounts, they're not going to be able to have all of the features that they had before. So I'm guessing more people are going to be using Google Classroom, which in a way is too bad. Schoology, Google can do a lot of things, but Schoology is designed for this purpose, and they do it better. But unfortunately, if we wanted to purchase this for the whole district, today it would cost about $8,700, and then it would have a $5,000 annual fee after that. And we don't have that kind of money. So I have a feeling more and more people are going to be going to Google Classroom as we move forward.
I think to talk about what Jeff is referring to too is that this year I think we're starting out from what we learned a lot from last spring is the accountability, and that's what Jeff I think is talking about. The daily attendance is the option. That's when the student has to go in the period of the day. If it's first period, they go in first period and check in, and that's the time to ask questions. The teacher will be available, and so I think it's much more controlled than what we had last spring, and monitored, and just a real focus on student learning. And so I think that will help this round, where we weren't prepared for that last spring, and I think the staff will feel that same way, I think, when we get them together next week. So, but I think that's a way to monitor that, so that if they have questions, they can ask.
I
The
think
big push at the beginning of the school year is long before we ever get to the hybrid or the online learning. We're going to be having the teachers work with their students to smooth that over. All of the teachers that I've talked to agree that if we would have known back on April 2nd or 3rd, whatever that first day was, if we would have known then what we know now, we would have started that off very differently. We probably would have tried to have the kids come back that next day before we sent them all away in March, and sat them down and said, okay, these are the platforms we're going to use. This is how you do this. We would have probably gone through some practice assignments, some practice lessons, so that everybody would have really understood and felt comfortable with it. And we didn't know then what we didn't know, if that makes sense. We learned so much, and now at least we know the questions to ask. Whereas last March we didn't even know what to ask. Our first faculty meeting last March, after we sent the kids home, it was really kind of it was a gloomy day, not just because we were all sad, but we were scared. We didn't know what to do. We didn't, people were asking me so many questions that I had no answer to, and it was really frustrating for me. So we're going into this now with a very different mindset.
Well, I compared to last year, I think communication is a big thing in this whole thing. And if we can get that problem solved, I think it'll be okay.
Yep, I agree.
Jim, before you jump into the status level red, can you just go over your screening expectations and protocols? I know it's, in this reopening plan, but just you can explain it out loud to have an idea on that.
So we actually learned last week that in Skyward, we've got the ability to ask screening questions before kids and employees come to school. So what we're going to be asking parents to do is to do those screening questions before the kids come to the school. All they got to do is grab their iPad. And Brett, you've done this, you've practiced this. Actually, a lot of people are practicing. We've probably had 30 kids already doing screenings. I just checked on that today. It's kind of fun. But Brett, you said that you were logged in and you were able to get all of your kids at the same time, right? You've got like 20 kids.
I don't have 20 kids, but yeah, you're able to see all your kids, and you're able to answer each question for each kid.
Oh, that's nice. You
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
Well, that will be done every morning before, what time did you want that, by 8 o'clock?
Well, we want parents to do this before they send their kids away, because especially the temperature. If we don't have the manpower to be temping every kid as they walk into the building, or the time for that matter. So we want parents to be doing that before they leave, for their own sake, because if you know your kid's going to get sent home if they've got a headache, or if they have to answer yes to one of those questions, you might as well save yourself the time and just keep them home at the beginning of the day. And then if they answer one of those questions positively, then they'll be advised to keep their kid at home, and they'll be contacted then within the day with further instructions.
Okay.
And it's 2 simple questions.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not like 10, it's 2.
Yep. Okay.
Well, question 1 is, does your kid have a headache? Do they have a toothache? Do they have a stomach ache? Are they breathing funny? Are they whatever?
There will be days I'm sure people may forget.
Yeah.
How are you handling that?
Well, we are talking about that.
Okay.
We've got people in the building that will likely be assigned to the doors,
Sure.
and checking for that. We haven't identified an efficient way to get that information to them. What happens is Nancy or Maggie can run a report that
Okay.
will show these are the people that responded, these are the people that didn't. but we don't have a real effective way that anybody's thought of yet.
Yeah.
How to corral those people that need to be screened and those that haven't yet.
Sure, no problem.
I'd like to wrap this up in about 5 minutes to
Okay.
end this meeting to start the next so we can get everybody admitted. So if we could move on to Red, not to
No,
say
that's fine.
any questions, but
Red is pretty simple. It's the same as the 712 online learning, but it's now for everyone. Still, there's no preschool. That ended up in orange. We will have the daycare running. We're going to be working hard to make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible, as I was saying, and about the purple level with grades 7 through 12. Brett, do you have anything you want to add for the elementary school on Situation Red?
We're gonna kind of base it off what we did last year with the Seesaw app. We are gonna have to have the daily check-in, but it's gonna be a lot of it depends on where and what the parents are doing, because we know parents are gonna probably still be working, and who's gonna be watching the kindergarten through 4th grade students. We are gonna have them teach live. But we're also going to record that, so if the student isn't able to be there live, they can at least watch it that day. That's going to be our biggest issue with kindergarten through 4th grade.
So Brent, when you say something about recording it live, are you going to be running the camera during classroom time? The teacher is teaching, and then someone else can channel in a little later on?
Yep, it'll just be like this. Where it's recorded, and then they can upload it to their Seesaw app or whatever way they're going to upload it to get it onto their Seesaw app so that the parents can see it.
Okay, thank you.
Jim or Brett, you might want to make that correction. If you can see in the red, you do have pre-K there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
all right, any other questions or any other comments from the administrators?
This has been a lot of work. Most people don't realize how many meetings and how many hours that has gone into doing this. I don't think I've ever been in so many meetings in my life. But what we're really confident about is that if something's not working, we can fix it. We're going to look at it, figure out what's wrong, and try to get it better.
And I agree with what Mr. Menton is saying now, and I think safety is the big issue, and we want to provide the safest environment we can. And along with that is support of the home of the families and stuff working with us, and that's what I think will make this successful, that we can continue with our low level and have success with our students. And I think that's very important. But I think family-wise, familiarize yourself and be ready if we go from one platform to another. So we thank for their support, but really watch all the protocols that are being put out there now, the cleaning, the masks, the social distancing, all the time. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you all. And I'm going to stop recording, end this meeting, and then we're gonna resume the 7 o'clock meeting, or start the 7 o'clock meeting, and you can follow me there. So